เท่าไหร่นะ
แบบนี้รวมถึงตัวแทนขายสมาชิกทั้งหลายนะคะสามารถ
Shamawong please check your message chat message chat message ช่วยเช็คหน่อย
Okay.
พลาดทางเทคนิคพี่น้ำไปเผลอกดหนอเป็นโฮสต์
make host ใช่ไหม
ใช่ต้องให้พี่น้ำเป็น make host แล้วเดี๋ยวพี่น้ำให้หนอเป็น co-host โอเคหนอเป็น co-host นะครับ โอเคเรียบร้อยขอบคุณค่ะ
ครับ
ตอนนี้ไลฟ์อยู่นะคะ
นะฮะ
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Today, Shamawong going to be moderator and MC for me. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Participants are joining, so we wait a little.
여보세요? 그거 설정 기간이 날짜가 안 맞아서 봤거든. 일단 너 목요일권 빌렸던 거지, 3개. 삭제했다고? 아, 그래? 근데 내가 아까 나한테, 근데 승인서는 나한테 보내지 않았나? 승인서는 있지 않나, 우리한테? 신청이 안 된 건가? 그럼 된 건가, 안 된 건가? 내가, 일단 너 연습 가고, 어, 시, 음, 그, 아, 알았어, 고마워. 음.
Hello, everybody. I think it's about time. And I think people are joining quite a good number to get started. And today I'm helping Nam to be a moderator. My name is Chamawong from Chulalongkorn. I'm also a landscape architecture lecturer. And today we are very glad to have 2 lectures. So the format will be the same, like we have about 3 hours. So each lecture will last for totally 1 hour and a half. So the first speaker, we got Dr. Jay Holy. Yeah, he's from University of Seoul, teaching landscape architecture. And his interest is about community development, community design, rural development, tourism. And today he'll give a talk on cultural resilience. So with the further ado, I will pass the mic to Dr. Jay Lee, and then you have probably about 70 minutes, okay?
All right.
Okay, so please take the microphone.
All right, thank you, Chamawang. So hello everyone. My name is Jae-Ho Lee. I'm assistant professor in the Department of Landscape Architecture at University of Seoul. I started my work at University of Seoul from this past March. So it's only been like 5 months. So due to the COVID-19, the issue. So I have never seen the students yet, but yeah, so anyway, I'm happy to join the IWF program. So I earned the PhD degree last August, a year ago. And I completed the landscape architecture, the studies until the master degree in South Korea. And after I studied about the designing the landscape, I started to get an interest in the kind of community development, like a community engagement, how make people to be engaging in the project more effectively. So I decided to pursue my PhD degree in a kind of community development. So it took for a while to earn my PhD degree, like 6 years and 1 year the postdoc position. And so my research interest lies in the intersection between the community development and the landscape architecture. So today I'm gonna talk about my work, particularly focusing on the community development or the cultural resilience. So hopefully my lecture can help you to better kind of having more understanding of the Bangpakong area. Maybe I'm not really sure about if my strategies or my kind of methods can be useful for you guys, but hopefully it can be very helpful for you to think more broadly or widely to understand the site. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right. All right, can you see this? Can you see my screen? All right.
Yeah, clear.
All right.
Good.
Okay, so today my topic is cultural landscape and resilient communities under the theme of urban agriculture and food securitization. So that is belong to the theme 4. So let me go ahead the next slide. All right, here is my contents. The first one is cultural and historical landscape. The second one is a resilient community. And the last one is Bangpakong site. So first I'm gonna talk about the cultural landscape or the historical landscape. I think that the cultural and historical or the religious landscapes are closely related to each other. So I'm gonna need to put them in a name of the culture and historical landscape. I'm gonna show you one example, 1 or 2 kind of case studies, what I did previously. And then I'm gonna talk about the resilient communities. So actually we don't need to kind of separately understand what is a cultural historical landscape and the resilient communities, because those 2 topics are kind of interchangeably it's hard to make them to separate. But the reason why I make them separate is to provide more, the different examples under each theme. So the second one, I focus more on the kind of conflict management. That is when we have a community development project, there are lots of stakeholders, local government, central governments, nonprofit organizations, local populations, the business owners. There are many community stakeholders. And when we engage those peoples in the projects, there's lots of conflicts going on. So I'm trying to think about how we can moderate or facilitate better, or how we can communicate more effectively. So the second topic focus more on the kind of the conflict management in the community, the context. The last one is the Bangpakong site. So I'm just still working on it, the Bangpakong site, but I'm trying to better understand the Bangpakong site based on my perspective. So yeah, maybe that's what I organized my presentation. So hopefully this can be helpful for you guys. All right, before we moving into the cultural, the historical landscape, I'm going to talk about the resilient management. The resilience or resilient management, maybe you may heard of lots of times like a resilient management. Maybe if you are majoring in the landscape architecture, you may heard about the concept of sustainability. Maybe a decade or two, maybe we have many times talk about the sustainability. It was kind of the buzzword in our field. Not only in our fields, maybe in sociology or the architect or the other fields also talks about the sustainability based on the ecology perspective, social perspective, and environmental perspective or ecologies. But I think that the terms has been changed to the sustainability, to the kind of resilience. Of course, we still use the concept of sustainability, but the resilience becomes more important in these days because we have lots of unusual climate change threats in urban areas as well as rural areas. If you look at the issues of coastal management, these three photos shows what's going to happen in this climate changes, like flooding issues or tsunami, or when the hurricane or typhoons hit our communities, it destroyed everything, the soil erosions. Those are the things that can be done in the resilient management. So the people started to, or especially the landscape architects started to think about how we can effectively manage those problems. So one way is, one example that I'm going to introduce is, let me show this, the living water break. Have you ever heard about living break? The living break is kind of the infrastructures that the people created to prevent the waters or floodings like that. But the living water break is made by the oyster shells. If you look at the picture on the right, you can see the tons of the oyster shells. So after people eat oyster leaves, and the people throw away the oyster shells on the ground and then put them in the bags. And those bags of the oyster shells can be placed in the oceans. They,
我哋開頭傾緊松寧嗰啲嘅，但係即係唔知點解啲人唔係好出聲咯，跟住好似即係連泰國嗰個其實都唔係話特別好多出聲咯，所以得好似 mainly 都係我同香港嗰個咯，咁所以好似有啲唔知點算咯。
I think Chris is talking. Please.
can I continue?
Okay.
All right. So the designers, they put the oyster shells in the oceans. So the oyster shells, it serves as kind of purifying the environment, water qualities, as well as reduce the speed of the water. So it prevents the flooding issues. It prevents the the tsunamis or any kind of the damages created by the typhoons or those kind of the climate change threat. That's how it works. So if you are involved in a theme 1, the ecology, or the urban agriculture, or any kind of topics, and if you are curious about this project, you can just click this link, and this YouTube shows that how it works. All right. And we know that the effectiveness of ecological resilience management, there are lots of benefits of creating the ecological resilience management. For example, it definitely enhances the biodiversity, sustain ecosystem services, increase ecological significance. It also addresses the both current and future stresses or threats. That is the kind of resilience. And the concept of resilience, the key of the resilience is kind of how we as a people or the community can cope with the threats or something we cannot expect. That is the key point of the resilience management. So because of the importance, they're having many studies that talks about the ecological resilience management in the context of coastal management, the fire management, the watershed management. But people started to think about, we need more holistic, we need a more kind of comprehensive understanding of the resilience management by incorporating the cultural or historical landscape or the values. So that's the key of today's presentation, the cultural and historical landscape. Yesterday, the Naram and Hwajin Lim and I talked about what is the cultural resilience, and we talked about what is a cultural kind of heritage. And Naram talked about we can distinguish cultural resilience as two different things. The first one is some of the tangible things. There can be, the physical kind of things. If you look at the picture on the middle, those are the shrine kind of places in, I think, the Tokyo area. And then the picture on the bottom is the temple area in the Bangkok. So those are the physical or the tangible, the historical places. Those places are quite commercialized, but that's what people kind of draw or people attract. The many visitors, they visit these places because the reason why people travel or go abroad is they want to, feel unusual experiences in these places. So those places have a kind of cultural meanings, the cultural identities of the places. Also, I put the very old, the pictures on the very left side. There is the forests are enclosed, the shrine places are enclosed with the lots of forest. I'm pretty sure that those forests are pretty well managed or well preserved. And the two picture on the right side is the example of in South Korea. This place is located in the very southern part of the South Korea. The border, it's not a border, it's the kind of the very bottom of the South Korea. And in the past, nobody knows who created this kind of land like this, but this type of land is created in the past. So it was, you can see that there's a mountains on the backside, and then there's an oceans on the front. There's just community in here. In the past, people need to survive in this tough environment. At the time, it was kind of 45-degree, kind of steep, very steep, the slope. But people need to figure it out, how they can survive in this tough and difficult conditions. So they decided to create those kind of land. They dig the land, and they put the stones in it, and they created more than 100 level small farm patches. And there's no actual data to support who created this, but the people in this area believe that their ancestors created this kind of landscape to grow rice. And nowadays, many visitors, they visited these places for to experience the unusual, the cultural landscape. So some of the papers talks about the importance of the cultural and historical resilience. So as I said, the historical and cultural things are closely related to the kind of religious values. And I'm going to show you one example of how the cultural things are closely associated with the religious beliefs or values. Sometimes people attribute it to their, provide some of the religious beliefs attributed to the places. Also, the traditional landscape express a unique sense of spirit. And the reason why you visit these types of places is to feel unusual experiences and have more unique sense of identity, where you can say the distinctiveness of the places. This place is quite different from the usual the places that we can visit. And the last one talks about if the landscape changes or the landscape destructed, and we can say that the identity or coherence of the landscape is destructed as well. All right, and I'm gonna show you one example. It's hard to present because I cannot see anyone here. So I think I'm talking by myself, but yeah. Anyway, all right. So village groups, that's the one example that I'm gonna show you as an example. So some people talks about the village groups in a different term, the culturally protected forest, or traditionally managed groups, or community managed forest. So depending on the context or depending on the country or region, or so they termed it differently, like a culturally protected forest, but I would term it as the village groups. Every community, not every community, but in many communities, they have a kind of small, groups of trees that have been preserved for a long time. So adjacent to their villages. And one type of the village groups is a sacred groups. This is predominantly existed in the Southeast Asia. If you are living in the, the Thailand, maybe you may know about this, the sacred groves. I heard that this is very predominantly existed in India area or Southeast Asia. So one of the distinguished characteristics of the sacred groves are the natural groves. Those are the naturally grown groves, and many times it is the long-lived trees, and it is protected by local communities. And people put their beliefs into the trees or the forest. So they protected, or they not manage, they conserve the forest because they believe that their kind of well-being of their community is linked to the conservation of this forest. So that's how sometimes they put the, those kind of small sculptures in the trees. Sometimes they go there and pray for the well-being of their community like that. And different types of the village groups that I'm gonna show you is the feng shui groups. Many of you, if you are living in East Asia, maybe heard about what feng shui groups is. So the feng shui groups originate from the China, and it moved to the South Korea and Japan, and it is predominantly existed in many areas in South Korea and Japan. And in South Korea, we call it Mao soup, and in Japan, it is called as a Satoyama. This type of forest has been the usual, and there are many different types of the feng shui groups in South Korea. But majority of the feng shui groups are man-made groups. Think about the sacred groves are the naturally grown forest, but the feng shui groves are the man-made groves. It is established, it is planted by the local communities for special practical application to villages in ancient times. If you look at the picture on the left, that is the kind of original theory of the feng shui. The communities, they are located, they put the mountains in the back, they can they put the waters in the front. And people in the past believed that that is the perfect place to live. And sometimes they put the the plants of trees along the shoreline. The reason why they planted trees along the shoreline is to protect the natural hazard or the typhoons, when the typhoons hits the communities, or hurricanes hits the area, or tsunami, or the flooding issues, overflows like that. These types of trees kind of serves as a buffer to reduce the damage or the speed of the water. So that is why the people planted trees like this. So over time, the people believe that the management of these trees are very important to their communities. So they have the psychological linkages to the conservation of these trees. So these types of trees have been managed, not protected or conserved. It is managed by local people. When they do their farming, sometimes they cut some of the trees for better kind of wind systems. Sometimes they they put more trees to mitigating flooding in the summer. And sometimes they use the trees to protect the harsh wind during the winter. So that is how the Korean people use those types of groves. And as I said, over time, they have kind of, have religious beliefs to the lives of the trees. So they managed those trees properly. So this is the environmental theory of Feng Shui. In the past, the ideal location for the human settlements is between mountain and the water. All right, thank you. Yeah, give me a second. All right. So yeah, the ideal location for the human settlements is between the mountains and the waters, so that the people believe that they can get energy from the mountains and the backs, and they can access the water very easily on the front. That is the perfect place for the living. And if you look at the picture on the left bottom, you can see that that is kind of bird eye view, that what it looks like in the Feng Shui area. They have mountains in the backs, and they have a kind of rice paddies on the front. And also the irrigation, the easy to irrigation to the water. And the picture in the middle shows that the perfect conditions of the Feng Shui theory. The point number 1 shows the human settlement. And this area is surrounded by the mountains. That is perfect conditions for the Feng Shui, the theory. But in many cases, maybe in South Korea, some of the environments does not have enough conditions to, to have more, the Feng Shui theory. So the characteristics of the Feng Shui theory in South Korea is kind of complementing the environment. If the environment lacks some of the conditions, we plant more trees to complement the environment. So if you look at the very old map on the right side, character A is where people live, and A is enclosed by the mountains on the back. But you see that the red circle in the middle, that is the open area, the open spaces. To fill the gaps, the people planted more trees in C area. That is man-made trees. That is the differences between the sacred groves and the Feng Shui groves in South Korea. And I think that is very interesting to think about how the Eastern culture of environmental theory, which is Feng Shui, is in line with the environmental theory of the Western culture. The prospect refuge. Have you ever heard about the prospect refuge? The term is used by the J. Appleton, who is an English geographer, I guess. This book was published in, I think that 1967. And the prospect refuge is kind of like this. The people desire to see outside very clearly, while at the same time, they would like to be hidden. So J. Appleton talks about in the past, maybe in an African, maybe thousands of years ago, the humans settled here, the humans, they are protected. They are, they are attacked by the animals. Sometimes they are, so they have to be hidden from the predators. So they have to be hidden while at the same time they need an open space to see their outside very clearly. J. Appleton talks about that as a human's desire. And one funny example is the when you take the elevator, think about maybe 10 people take the elevators. If you ask about the people that which area you want to stand, but then nobody wants to stand in front of the people. Like you want to stay in the edge of the elevators, not in the very front. The J. Appleton talks about that's a human's desire. That's innate desire to be hidden. So I think that is very interesting to think about the comparison between the Eastern culture kind of environmental theory and the Western cultures of the environmental theory. And now it is combined with the understanding of the sustainability. So I'm going to show you some of the examples of the Korean village groups. We have so many Korean village groups in South Korea. I'm showing us the part of the Korean groups. And I'm going to show you one example of the Fungsu groups, which is located in the Gyeongju area. I think that the NARM and some of you may already know about where Gyeongju is. And the Gyeongju area is the historic area. And this area was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage in 2000. It contains lots of, originality, historical cultures. And so the whole city was designated as the cultural heritage by UNESCO. The one example that I'm going to show you is the Odong forest. The Odong means the 5 tomb. 5 tomb means that is the royal tomb in the past. So believe it or not, this place was created more than 2,000 years. It's pretty long history. And the monarchy of this, at the time, it was a Silla dynasty. And the founding monarchy, after he died, I don't know if this is true or not, but he went up to the sky and he spread it up into 5 different parts. For example, like legs and hands and the bodies are spread into 5 parts. And it fell down to the ground. And these 5 royal tombs are the place where his parts are fallen. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's what it said. So after this, this place is believed as a sacred groves and sacred or religious tombs. And this place is surrounded by, the abundance of the forest. So people are not able to access this area. Only the small number of populations are able to access this and manage or protected the conditions of the forest. So now it has the representative of the historical and cultural, the landscape of the Silla dynasty. And the Odong forest was established based on the Fungsu theory. If you look at the Odong sites in here, we have mountains in here, and we have rivers flowing down like this and merges to the large, river. So based on this article that published in 2017, he talks about the Odong forest. They can get the energies from the mountains, the flowing down to the mountains to the Odong forest. And in the past, the water overflows and some parts of the Odong forest was submerged with water. So the Odong forest is the place where the water and energies meet. This is very interesting to see how these places was created in the past. So I'm trying to think about, my colleagues and I try to think about, okay, if these places have a cultural significance, then we need to figure it out. What types of trees are planted in this area? Are these plants, are these trees that are planted today is similar with the ones in the past or different? We try to think about what is different, what is similar. So we try to find out the area photos. The photos taken in 1954 is the first photos that we can get. So if you look at the very left photos on top, there's only a small amount of trees or forest in 1954. And 1968, there's not much difference from the 1954. But if you look at the photos taken in 1977, you can see the biggest difference by establishing the highways. I don't know if it is a highway or the small road, but there's a road were established, and along the road, the trees and moundings were established. And photos in 1982, there are more trees in here. And now in 2015, you can see that there's abundance of trees enclosed by the autumn forest. So we figured out that the more trees were planted after and over times. So we try to think about, okay, what types of trees were planted, and is the trees are the ones that are existed in the past, or somebody planted more trees in here. So we categorize the trees into 3 different groups. The first one is historical species that are noted in a historical document. And second one is a naturally grown species that are naturally grown species. And the last one is planted species. So planted species can be alien plants, or the trees that are intentionally planted by someone else. So if you look at the blue circle on the right map, that represents the planted species. And majority of the green plants were in the pine trees, the pine trees. This is the future kind of management. And so what we figured out is that the picture on the right side shows that it was the plants in the past. There were abundance of the Salix purity. I will call it as a Salix, the trees, or the willow pond in the front of the autumn forest. This is because in the past there was an overflow of the waters. So the water submerged to this some part of the autumn forest. That is a good condition for the Salix trees to regenerate over time. But because of the dike, if you look at the picture on the left bottom, that is the moundings and the dikes creates the dry conditions so that the Salix trees cannot live. So that is the one problem. And another problem was the planted trees. This is because the Cultural Heritage Administration of Korea intentionally planted more trees. For example, the maple trees or the ginkgo trees in this area. And in this paper, we argue that these type of trees are not associated with the culture, the history of the autumn forest. If you plant like a ginkgo trees, like a maple trees, it's kind of creating the urban parks. It distracts the historical identity of the autumn forest. That's what we talked about in this study. So, in my last one is so these types of trees have been preserved and managed by the local wisdoms, the traditional kind of knowledge of how this places was managed so far. So we need to preserve this place as a historically preserve the areas by planting more appropriate trees rather than planting the alien trees, which detract the historical identity of this place. Yeah, that's the my first example of the cultural and historical landscape. So the second one is the resilient community. So as I said, in this second topic, I'm going to talk about the kind of conflict management. There's lots of, stakeholders, as I said, government, local government, local people, and business owners, factories, industries. If all these stakeholders work together, that is definitely, there's lots of conflicts going on. I'm not going to say that conflict is a bad thing. So conflicts can be, unavoidable. Likewise, the backpacking sites, the industrialization or urbanization cannot be unavoidable. So the thing is how we can manage it, how we can manage conflict more effectively. I think that is one of the important things. So my example is, this is the part of my term project when I was a PhD student. So while I'm taking this course, the environmental conflict management, I studied about the area of the DMZ. The DMZ is the demilitarized zone. As you may know, our country is separated into two different countries, North Korea and South Korea, and we've been separating for more than 70 years, I guess. Yeah, 70 years. And if you look at the DMZ, this is a line of MDL, and DMZ is the area of the 2 kilometers to the north and 2 kilometers to the south. So total is 4 kilometers of this area. We call it as a DMZ area. And this area has not been touched for more than 70 or 60 or 70 years. No one can access this area. That is why this area is a home for, diversity, the endangered species, migrate birds, and some of these species that you cannot see in urban areas. Those are the, perfect places for, those kind of animals. So in this project, I focus on the cranes. We have 2 different cranes, red crown crane, and the other one is white-napped crane. And the map on the left shows how the cranes migrate. It migrates from the Russia, and it stopped over in the South Korea area, and it finally migrate to the southern part of the China. And since South Korea is very, urbanized, it's very hard to find out, the perfect place to stop over. So the DMZ, which has not been touched for more than 70 years, is the perfect places for cranes to stay. And in this project, I focus on the Cheollon County, which located pretty close to the North Korea. It's the middle of this DMZ. And if you closely look at it here, we have DMZ and CCZ. CCZ is a civilian control line, which means that only small number of populations are able to access this land. For example, the farmers who have a license, they can access this land, but not many people are able to access this land. And we have frontier borders on the bottom here. And I talked about why cranes come to the Cheollon Basin and why Cheollon area is important for cranes. The reason is that it is very safe environment for the cranes because since the cranes are very, very sensitive species. So if they notify any kind of human interference or human disturbance, then they do not come back. So the Cheollon Basin, especially within the boundary of the CCZ, is very perfect places for cranes. And And wide farm and forest lands is also a perfect conditions for cranes habitats. And one of the interesting thing is there is a non-freezing pond, so all year round, and that is very attractive condition for cranes to live. So after that, I thought about the issues that happened in Choron County. I categorized the 3 issues in here. The first issue is urbanization in Choron County. It's pretty similar with the Pangpakong River area, but the situation is a little bit different. The urbanization, the local population living in this Choron County, they feel they want a development in this area because the Choron County and the people who live there were excluded in many times because of the complicated situation with North Korea. If they develop this area, there is some of the serious issues with North Korea, or the problems or the threats. So they always were excluded from the development. But the central government passed a law of the support for the borderline, people who live the Choron area. But the IUCN or the environmentalists, they are disagree with the decisions because they talk about expensive fields and extensive wetlands will be reduced, which result in the fragmentation of the habitat for cranes. And issue number 2 was the Ministry of Environment. They plan to designate the whole area, the DMZ area, as a biosphere reserve. But the problem was majority of the land is owned by the private owners. Just unlike with the Pangpakong situation, only 7% of the land is owned by the individuals, like private owners. But in this case, most of lands were owned by the private. That is another problem. And the people who own the lands are kind of angry about the decisions because if the land is designated as a biosphere reserve, which means that they cannot develop the area, they cannot sell, and the land prices will be dropped. And they argue about that is a violation of the property rights. And the last issue that is going on in the Choron County is the ecotourism and economic development. In Choron County, they need economic benefits. And every winter, they have cranes come to this area and they try to think about how they can increase their profits or increase their revenues by attracting more tourists. And some tourists, maybe some of the tourists who are interested about the watching birds, they come to this area. But the environmentalists, they are strongly disagree with the ideas because, as I said, the cranes are very sensitive animals. So if they find out the human existence, they do not come back. And another issue is the ice fishing. The Choron County, they are holding the event and they're bringing the fishers and then to do something like a fish, like breaking the ice and then the catching the fishes. That is the another issue in these places. There's this conflict kind of the conflicts between the environmentalists and the Choron local government. That is the 3 issues that I found in this place. So based on this, I try to think about the level of stakeholders, In a macro level, I can say that is a central government in Korea and IUCN, that is the International Union for Conservation of Nature, people who strongly agree with the ideas of preserving the cranes, and Ministry of Environment. And in the middle level, we have like a Choron local government and environmentalist. And in micro level, which is individual level, we can say landowners or farmers. But based on this level of stakeholders, I try to think about what is a problem in this area and how we can systematically understand the situation and more holistic understanding of this idea. So for example, the IUCN talks about the concerns of the fragmentation of the crane's habitats, and they are requesting for the collaboration with North Korea. But the central government, they are hesitant to move because, it is very sensitive to, work with North Korea. And that is the problems. And Ministry of Environment, they plan to designate the area as a biosphere reserve, but the local communities, people who own the land, disagree with the problem, with the decisions, because the land prices will be dropped. And they need an immediate profit by selling their property or by developing the area. Another problem is Choron local governments, they are kind of attracting more tourists by holding the events of the ice fishing or bird watchings. But the environmentalists, they are strongly disagree with the idea of the Choron local governments. That is, we have lots of kind of different stakeholders, and conflicts are kind of intertwined each other. So it is hard to kind of figure it out. What is the problem? What is the result? What we have to do in this case? So in my term paper, I structured like this: the macro level, the meso level, and micro level. And I categorize ecology context, social context, and economic context based on the sustainability concept. And each column has two different columns. One is a cranes, the other one is a region, and cranes in region, and cranes in region. But based on the cranes perspective, I filled out the blank. Like for example, in ecology context, in cranes perspective, the preserving endangered cranes. From the regional perspective, designation of the biosphere reserve. And economic context, I put the potential threats for farming. That is, the farmers, they feel the cranes as a potential threat for their farming, because sometimes the cranes come to the Choron area, like an agriculture area, and they eat some crops before harvesting. So the farmers, they're angry about that. Sometimes they kill the cranes. That is a threat for farming from the farmer's perspective. And the people who own the land, their land prices will be dropped and violation of property rights. And in the middle point, the social context, kind of bird watching and ice fishing is very controversial issue between the environmentalists and local governments. And I think that the ecology context that is in the macro level is hard to capture or hard to resolve. That is it's not something that we can handle. And economic level, which is micro level, like a farmers and landowners, that is very individual levels, that is very kind of personal, it is very individual. So I think that we need to starting from the middle point, which is a design space, I call. And by creating the agencies, I would say that is collaborating, or I would say the organizing the community members and educate the people, how they can not fight, they can organize communities, and they can, collaborate, work together to communicate, and they need to be educated. And they need to know what they have, what assets they have in their communities. And they need to, provide their ideas or their, concerns to the government or authorities. For example, the incentives or rewards are the, as you can imagine, government or authorities, they need to provide some of the incentives or rewards to the people who live there. Without the local communities, the ecotourism won't be successful, or industry cannot be successful. So they need to provide some of the incentives or rewards. So that's what I conclude my term paper like this. So in a Bangpakong case, I don't want you to, use this type of the framework, but just try to show you how you systematically or structurally, the frame the, the issues happening in Pangpakong area. And I'm gonna show you, as I said, I'm still working on it, the Pangpakong site. So I just captured what Naram posted. And I see that there is a long history in the Pangpakong area in the past, in 1986, and the ecotourism and development, industrialization, factories, pollutions, and the EEC, right? Eastern Economic Corridor, saying we are not sure what's gonna happen in the future. And I found very interesting and very useful the report on the website that is a climate change vulnerability assessment Pangpakong River Wetland, Thailand. It is written in English. If you can download it, you can just type it on a website. It provides lots of information. So if you are not knowledgeable about this site, then this article provides lots of information for you guys. And some of the issue that I found so far is industrialization and urbanization. That's the biggest change in the Pangpakong area, which means that increasing number of factories. And according to this article, it talks about there's a conflict over the use of water because the farmers, they need water for irrigation. And factories, they need water. So there's a conflict between these two different stakeholders over the use of the water usages. And factories, when they use water, the water is polluted. And when they release the waters, the ecosystem is, contaminated. And it also affects, the lives of the communities. They need a local fishing. They need aquaculture. They need to do something on the fish, on the river. So it impacts or negatively impacts to the lives of the local communities. I think that you'd better to understand the interconnections or linkages, how those situations are linked all together. Also, there is a plan of the Eastern Economic Corridor, the rapid train, as far as I know. Which means that the increasing number of tourists will visit these places. And we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So those types of changes will happen in near future in Pangpakong area. So try to think about those kind of issues or some of the facts or some of the ideas on the in your just note it or map on your map. One of the good things in this article is it shows the seasonal differences. So I attached 4 different slides in here. One, saltwater area, freshwater area, blackish water area, and another blackish water area above the dam. So this article shows the seasonal differences. I think that one of the interesting things in Pangpakong area is the seasonal difference. People who live in Pangpakong area, they have many things to do all year round. In winter, they harvesting the salt salt farming, and they do local fishing, and during the freshwater seasons, they harvesting or they grow rice, or they catch fish and aquaculture. And I'm not really sure about this, but I think that is the exotic, the culture of the agriculture in Thailand, Nakawang. I think that is the Nakawang, the agriculture method, the digging the trenches of this area and put the fish in here. And when the waters go out to the rivers, so some small, crabs or the shrimps remained in this area, so they can catch the small, the fish. So if you read these maps, then you can have a better understanding of this area. And I think that this is the one of the important and one of the interesting points for you guys to design this area. And the last one is the based on the the level of stakeholder. I try to think about the the issues in this area. That's the part of the conditions in here. Like a government, they seek for economic development, and they provide some, maybe I guess, they provide incentives to industries or factories, and they polluted in water, and it impacts the farmers and fishers, but they want to keep preserving their traditional lifestyle. And the conflicts between the factories and farmers, the conflicts over the use of the water, and industries and factories, they provide economic development to the local governments. So if you look at the picture on the right bottom, you can see the how things are interrelated each other. The blue line shows the positive effect. On the other hand, the red line represents the negative effects. So try to think about the systematic, the systematic, the structure of this site. This is my last slide. Have you ever heard about the public participation GIS, the PPGIS? That is the incorporation of the GIS and public participation. For example, if we use the concept of the sustainability, economy, or social aspects or environmental aspects, you can think about these three, the concepts in here. For example, ecologically possible, like a habitat suitability. If there is a very important species that needs to be preserved in a Bangpakong area, you can just let the local populations to map, to point out which species should be preserved in this area and where the area is. And the next one is socially acceptable, the public preferences. And just let the local populations, let them know, when you do your survey, like ask about the which area should be preserved or which area should be, developed. Because the urbanization cannot be unavoidable, right? So they need to choose where they need to preserve, which place should be developed. And after that, economically feasible or land use or tenure, think about who owns the land. Is it owned by public or is it owned by private? And you can let the people just drag and drop to the map, and you can just combine it, and you can find out which area should be the developments, which area should be preserved for this area. I think that within this limited time of this workshop, I don't think this type of the strategies cannot be applicable for you guys, but I think that I'm trying to show you some different method how we can deal with these issues and these issues in the Bangpakong area. All right, so this is the end of my presentation. So yes, if you have any questions, please ask me. Okay, 12 chats.
Okay, thank you, Dr. J. Holy. So I think now it's time for a question or discussion. I saw some of the people chatting, in the chat room, but mainly like some kind of comments, not really the question, like share uh, similar or landscape because we are neighboring countries like so this time we will welcome questions or comment, or I can start with, well, by the way, thank you for the interesting lecture. You mentioned about the feng shui, right? Feng shui growth. And I just want to add a little bit about in Thai, we also have some kind of, it's not exactly the same, but we put like a rainbow color ribbon, tie the tree with a like a yellow, green, red, like a very colorful color ribbon. That way, people know that that tree is the sacred tree, and they will not cut the trees. They will not touch that kind of tree. So, but mostly we do that with a big tree, relatively big tree, like the banyan tree,
Ficus.
the ficus, yeah, the sacred fig. That way we call it ordain. That tree become ordain already. So people will respect that kind of tree. And another issue I want to share is I work closely with the sociology organization in Thailand, and we also have the issue of the Thai crane. In the northeastern part of Thailand, the Thai crane was extinction of Thai crane is about like 50 years ago. But then we kind of reintroduction, due to the very fancy technical I don't know, method. We can reintroduction the Thai crane back to the nature. But then again, have the same issue that the local people, they need to do like organic farm, organic rice farm. They cannot do they cannot use pesticide, insecticide of the farm. Otherwise, crane, which is very sensitive, will again get extinct. So that's probably the two issues that I want to also share in the Thai context that have somewhat maybe the similar thing.
Right. Yeah, I heard that the cranes are very, very sensitive species. So yeah, I'm not knowledgeable about the specific species, but the environmentalist talks about if they notify any kind of human interference or disturbances. Even the environmentalist talks about the breaking ice for ice fishing are not a good condition for the cranes. They cannot sleep during during night. So yeah, that is very, I don't know, it's very, very conflict situation going on in the Choron area. And many people living in a Choron area want to development because, because of the close, distance to the North Korea, they feel that they are always excluded from the development, even though they have the property rights, or even though they have a land on the Choron area, they cannot, sell their land. So I don't know, it is very complicated issues in South Korea. And I have never, I didn't know that the DMZ was the site for IWL in the past. I didn't notice that, yeah. Yeah.
I think in 2000, very beginning, 2011 or something.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, 11, yeah. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So.
And we went to the learning center in the DMC about the crane also.
Oh, really? That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That was a building that explaining about crane over there.
Yeah, I have never been there yet, but yeah, hopefully I can go there. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
And yeah.
Okay. I just maybe elaborate more a little bit about the crane. I know that the first time that we tried to reintroduce the crane, like almost 100%, you know, not successful. They all die because people not really participate. Some people shoot, and some people still using pesticide in their farm. So that we took a lot of time to get people to understand that they need to adapt, or the importance of this kind of species that was once extinct and want to reintroduce. We kind of yeah, the issue of the community and conflict happens all the time, also in the Thai context. We took quite a number of years to get people understand, and after the second or the third time, we successfully get some number of the survival Thai cranes. You know, like the first time was like 100% die, not success. The second time was a little bit like 5% or something, and the third time was the number keep increasing. And I talked to some of the people who in charge. They're all crying, you know, because the crane is like their baby. They try to save them, and once released back to the nature, they all die. It was so sad.
Right. So I realized that the more I studied about these things, I realized the importance of the education, the like educating the local populations. Those are the ones who are not in, you know, kind of has not the higher level of the educations, and they need immediate profits, or they just shoot the cranes because the, you know, the cranes are eating the, you know, the crops of their land. So that is a problem. So I think that the educating or and the organizing community members into as a, you know, the community organizations, they can, you know, work together as a group, not individual things. So I think that that is the so one of the important thing to manage the conflicts. Yeah.
What kind of crops do the crane eat?
I think that rice, yeah, just rice.
The rice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Before harvesting, yeah. So that is the critical issues. After the harvesting, that is not a problem. But if the cranes come to the land and then eat the crops before harvesting, and the farmers get angry.
Oh, so maybe it needs to be sort of like the Hong Kong example, that you can actually allocate pieces of land. It's actually left behind for them to eat.
Yeah.
So that then you can coexist together, because I mean, it's not their fault that they need to eat. And, so but you need to provide the food. Yeah, thank you for your lecture. I've always been interested in cultural landscape. How do you actually define when it is a cultural landscape? Because we now live in, you know, this day and age, but, you know, things that we do now in our lifetime, would that become future cultural landscape? How do you actually define?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's quite interesting. Is it all the old stuff? Only the old stuff is the cultural landscape.
Right.
And when did the new stuff becomes cultural landscape?
Yeah, maybe our lives. I think that the cultural land. One of the important thing is our lifestyles. How do we live? How do we live for a living? Or, you know, how do we act? I think that that is the entire understanding of the cultural landscape. So if we look at the something that is pretty old, then we can say that is a
Yeah.
cultural landscape as well. But yeah, maybe in the future, maybe in our next generations, we can see that they can see that the landscape can be the cultural or historical things. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your questions, but
yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing. Yeah, it's very hard to define.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So my research interest, what I'm going to do is to kind of incorporating the ecological resilience as well as the cultural resilience. One of the key is the ecology and combined with the human behavior. And there can be a community, it can be the community participation. And the PPGIS is the part of those kind of approach. Just we can use the GIS, who owns the land, they can be, we can access those kind of data from the internet, but we can also map the public, the public's understanding to the map. So we can get, 1,000 people's understanding or 2,000 people's understanding. If we can create the link of the map, we can just spread it out, just distribute it to the people who live in the community, and they can just drag and drop to the map, and we can just see the overlaps of the layer and see which area should be developed and which area should be preserved. Or that is the one example of this, the PPGIS. So I would say that is some people say that is a community mapping. Some people say it is a public participation GIS. Yeah, that's what I'm interested about. Yeah.
Right. So when is it most useful, the PPGIS? When is it most effective from your experience? What do you map that's the most effective using that?
Honestly, I'm in the stage to study about the PPGIS, but there is the legendary person who studied about the PPGIS for 30 years or 40 years.
Okay.
His name is Greg Brown. He
okay.
This past January. Yeah. But so I read some of his articles, and he studied about he lived in Australia, and the koala, right? That is I think that is an endangered species as well.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So he let the visitors who visit the island just the map where you saw the koala in the area.
Oh, okay.
So
getting the public to help.
Right.
Oh, okay.
To gathering their sites, where they saw the koala. And also they can ask about the people who live there. And that is the realm of the social acceptability. If we are going to create a habitat for koala, then which area do you prefer?
Preference.
Preference.
Right.
That is the realm of the social aspects. That is the economy aspects or the environmental aspects. The economy aspects can be done like a land use. Who owns the land? We can build the koala habitat in a private land, right? So we can just map out, just layouts of the whole, the data, and then we can see that, okay, this area should be excluded. This area should be, in the first priority and second priority, third priority. And yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
So it's like a survey kind of thing, but it's very specific to one thing, to one topic. Okay.
Right. A survey.
It's interesting.
GIS. And he also studied about the different understanding of different stakeholders. For example, local population prefer this area, but visitors want this. Differences between these two, like that. Or the business owners, like that.
Yeah.
So maybe see the different understanding of same situation. Yeah. So
it's kind of like a design charrette.
Sure. Yeah.
It's something like that, but it's online.
Right, online. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is very useful in this COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very.
But one of the difficult thing is the people who are old are not, they are not familiar with using the computers or internet. So that's my concern. Yeah, how I can implement in the Korean context, especially in rural areas. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's my.
Thank you.
All right. I saw one of the questions in the chat, actually from Thai, one of our Thai colleague. The question is there any issue about the crane population and how to control them?
Good question. Korean population. I think that the project that I did was done in 5 years ago. So I'm not really sure about the how the Korean population increase or decrease over time. But when I read the articles, the environmentalist talks about the number of the cranes are decreasing. So they provide more food to the land so that the cranes can eat more and more. And yeah, that's what I don't know, maybe how to control them. Control. I think that is the beyond of the control the cranes. I think that I'm not really sure about if they can control the number of population.
I guess it's based on food.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you don't have enough food, then they're not gonna have as many.
They're not gonna stop over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the amount, the quantity of the food is one thing, and the quality is another thing. But the food issue is definitely the key, for the population.
Right. Also, the more people visit the place, the less the cranes will be existing. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I need to get update the situation in Choron Basin. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think we can have like one more questions or comments if any.
Hi, I'm a I'm a student from Group 1, and I would like to ask about the Choron community. And you mentioned that they do not like to develop the area into what is that? The biosphere reserve area, and because the thing it will cause us the land price to drop and it violates their property rights. But I would like to know is the benefits that the private landowners get from now is bigger than the benefits that they get when the government developed the area into a biosphere reserve or developing the ecotourism.
Yeah, your question is about if the area was designated as a biosphere reserve, long term, it can be a benefit for the local population, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's what the Ministry of Environment talks about to the local population. So if you look at the long term, then it can be a benefit for them. The people who own the land, they need immediate profits. They like to sell the land. They like to develop the land because they have been excluded for a long time because of the military issues with North Korea. So the land prices does not go up, and it always keeps down and down, and it's decreasing. So local population, they have been, angry for years. So yeah, that's what they do. And biosphere reserve, that is the, and also if the land is designated as a biosphere reserve, they cannot do nothing on the area. And if they, attract more, tourists from outside, we need to think about if the ecotourism are beneficial to local population. I think that is very important to the Bangpakong River area as well. If they have a, ecotourism, boat business or any kind of ecotourism, things going on in Bangpakong area, does those kind of ecotourism does really help or increase the benefits of local population? If the ecotourism is owned by the institutions or authorities, does the benefit comes to the local population? So I think that is the problem in many ecotourism sites in South Korea, because majority of the ecotourism is run by the institutions, like a local government, and they do not engage the local people. So all the benefits created by the ecotourism go through the local institutions, not to local people living there. So that is why I'm trying to talk about the difference between the community-based tourism versus community-driven tourism. The first one is community-based, means that it is many types of the projects going on based on the institutions or authorities. But on the other hand, community-driven means that community, they are the ones who initiate, who implement, who manage the project. So that's the huge difference between the community-based tourism versus community-driven tourism. So yeah, in the past, yeah, there's a kind of three kind of typologies. First one is community located, which means that people understand community as a physical boundaries. The second one is community-based, means that the institutions engage local populations, but that is a low levels of participation. But if we move on to the third, the last stage, which is the community-driven approach, that is the empowerment of a local people. And local peoples are the ones who initiate and who attract the population, the tourists. So the framework should be changed from the community-based to the community-driven. Yeah, that's what I think about in Bangpakong area as well. If we just run, just do the ecotourism in the Bangpakong area, the economic benefits won't be beneficial to the local population. Yeah.
Yeah. I think yesterday Sylvia did a lecture about the about Lychee Wall, and I think it's a successful community-driven project. So, but what impressed me is that how the local villagers in Lychee Wall is willing to protect their land, and this time I cannot go to our site in Thailand because of the COVID-19, but I think what I missed is that I didn't hear from the local people about their opinions for developing the site. So I do not know, do they have the passion to just keep their site as agricultural land and a more rural area, or do they want instant benefits like selling the land to the to the factories? They want development. So I'm not sure whether promoting ecotourism will be a successful step. Will it be a good community-driven project, or it will be just the community and what is that, the institute lead project?
I think
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, is that Nam?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Just want to add to comment to Janice because she asked about the community participation and community driven in terms of how the people in Bang Pakong area feel about the development. So, and also tourism. So we broadcast theme 4 because theme 4 talk about the community resilience. So we broadcast the video of the interview to the community leader to the theme 4. And now I already uploaded the video with translation because our student interview in Thai and then the community leader answer and we translate in English already in the classroom. So you can find out from there. So approximately, tentatively, the community leader says they don't want to be under any other employer. They want to be their own boss, something like that. So they are very keen in doing some like activity like community driven activity, not under others, and they don't want to move to the factory. That's what they said.
Okay. Is that most of the local residents in the site say so?
The one that gave the interview was actually were the sub-district leader. So they already discussed with the people and they gather and make some discussion from time to time. So I think they can represent also at least the community in their sub-district area. And you might ask your Thai friend about meeting with the local community that provide us the land and also provide us the boat riding to the canal. So both of them, I mean, both of the area encourage the community and local people to do such a business.
Yeah, I think I remember ma'am also mentioned during our little boat tour that she met this person who catches crabs and fishes in the river, and he was saying she actually put it into our Facebook theme, and she said he actually has been a fisherman and for a very long time, and he supported his children to go to school with the money that he got, but because the land is not owned by him, so and then the big industrial people come in and take the land from them, so actually he's very worried that he wouldn't be able to make a living. So actually they do want to keep working as farmers and fishermen from that one person.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So it's about the time.
Okay, so I think there's some more information in the chat about the land ownership, so you can check out. As far as I know, the land ownership, most farmer rent the land, not own the land, but you can check again about the ownership.
Rent the land from the private sector, not the government.
Yes. And I think it's about the time, right? The area. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Jay Holy, and for the interesting topics, cultural resilience. I don't know whether we should have a short break. Do we need a break now? 5 minutes?
I think we can have like very short break. Otherwise, Nergis will have less time.
Okay, let's say I announce like 5-minute breaks or also. So or 7 minutes break. We can continue the next lecture in about, say, 7 minutes. Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a short break. We'll resume in 7 minutes. See you. Okay, I think it's about time that we said 7 minutes break. So shall I resume? The next speakers that we're gonna give us a lecture is Nergis. Nergis, she's a landscape architect and storyteller, visual designer, you know, and working with the ITU, you know, Istanbul. So I let her introduce or tell a little bit about herself more. So please, everybody, welcome Nergis.
So, hi everyone, I'm Nergis and I'm a research assistant in Istanbul Technical University and I just started actually. And until now, during my master's degree, graduate degree, I focused on design competitions and usually on the graphical aspect of design competitions and conceptual design. So let me just share my screen. Can you give me permission to share my screen, please?
Doing what? Sharing screen?
Yeah, can you give me permission to share screen?
Okay. Nam, can you help?
Yes.
Make her like a co-host or something in order to share a screen. I cannot do that.
I think she can share the screen. You push the share
Okay, let
screen.
me check.
Share screen button, the green one.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Can you share?
Yeah, let me just. Okay.
First you, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's coming,
okay.
it's coming. Perfect, I can see it.
So.
It's good to go.
This is our university. I just wanted to show you the building. This is Taşkışla, which is mainly about design and architecture. And as I told, I'm a research assistant in this university. And let me go to my presentation. Okay, so as I just told you, this is a competition project which focused on conceptual design and conceptual aspect of like food production. So the name of our project was Redefining Fresh version 2.0. So Alive is the new fresh was the slogan of the project, and it was given an honorable mention in Urban Meal Mine competition. So what this competition is about is that Urban Meal Mine is defined by these organizers as place where people can generate, create, learn, contribute to grow food for the city. This is usually located in the heart of the city where skilled labor, abundant transport, and short distance logistics, faster production technologies can break even revenue over the high cost land it occupies. So as we know, like in urban areas, the land is more expensive than the rural areas, but with the transportation of food, actually this difference can break even. So this competition focused on this aspect, and this was the given area. It was in London, and it was a new convent market, which was also kind of a hub for food transportation and storage. So as you can see in this picture, this is the site. You can see my mouse. And it's really close to Thames River. And as you can see, there's multiple architectural typologies in the city, in this area. So we actually created a concept where we can use all of these different typologies as, and we created a 3 parties model. I can explain it like this. So this is the after image, and in general, the concept of the project can be summarized as changing the meaning of fresh, and I will just define it. Yeah. So in general aspect, fresh actually means recently made or picked food, but now actually we know that it doesn't, it is not the fresh food because it's already picked, frozen, transport from rural areas to urban areas. Therefore, we are just eating this produce that already picked maybe 2 weeks ago. And therefore, we create a new definition for fresh, which means recently made or on the bow, alive till the moment it's consumed. So the important aspect is being alive till it's consumed, which can be only happen if we are close to the food production sites, we are close to fruit trees or etc. So we actually created this project in the with the focus of 6 questions. So I'm going to present them like this. So what is changing? What the first question? So migration from rural areas to urban areas are constantly increasing. According to the United Nations article, 54% of the world population lives in the urban areas, and by the 2050, this number will reach to 66%. So the more the population increase in the urban areas, the more it depends on the food that they are not producing. So what we can come up with that is creating a system where people can produce their own food in the city and consume that food to actually decrease the food miles. So so what's happening here is that we are seeing 4 images which can just summarize the general concept of the project. The orange section is the changed part. So usually what happens is someone picks our food and deliver it to the urban areas, and we go and buy already picked and frozen, most of the time, foods, and we share that with our loved ones. But what we propose is being in the site and doing this production as a community, therefore eliminating the transportation. And when we go to grocery stores, we buy freshly picked food just on the spot, and or producing them in our homes and consuming them. So, and how is it a working adaptation? So when we look at the food production in general concept, in the first food production era, it was actually very simple. People were living in the rural area and producing their own foods until the industrialization. So with industrialization, there was this huge migration from rural areas to urban areas, which creates our first breaking point. And to change the balance between consumption, production and consumption changed until now. So what we're saying that we can have a second breaking point with this version of production, and this system that we are producing has 3 main parts, 3 main parties, which are first the hub. The hub means the project site actually, which we redesigned as this layered production facility, food production facility. And the second part is, as you can see here, the grocery store. This grocery stores, the non-grocery stores are full with already picked food, and we just bought them. But we are suggesting that hub can work as a production site and picking site, but also they can sell their almost grown fruit trees or, I don't know, vegetable pots, and they can sell them in planters to grocery stores where they can keep growing them in there with this layered design system again. And also, as it's impossible for urban areas to just satisfy with this food, and therefore they need to actually produce, people need to produce their foods too. Therefore it's important, this architectural typologies which I mentioned before, because they're in London especially, there are different kinds of architectural typologies, like there are houses with really big gardens, there are some apartments, and I don't know, there are some suburban areas where there is a little green area for personal use. So we are suggesting that the third part must be the house, home of people, where they can, even if it's small, produce food. Of course, as this is purely local, there are some limitations of, I don't know, climate, so which directly affect the plant variations. So therefore, when we are depending on local food, actually the habitats and the properties, our climate and our surrounding, it's really important. But as I mentioned, this is a conceptual project and it's need to be personalized, detailed for each city. So how does this system work? So we created this kind of image with different architectural types, which is directly connected to the hub we mentioned. So if we can, yeah. This is the zone A, which defines the city center. And as we are in the city center, it's we don't have much of a space for food production. So we are just in these spaces, suggesting that people can grow their food in the rooftops. And this is just can be like small production, maybe herbs, maybe some greenery, but still it will create this cycle in the minds of the users of this city that we are now getting fresh food and we need to do something to contribute that. And this is the dense urban settlement. As you can see here, sometimes it is not possible to have roof gardens. So in this case, we are suggesting that if they have balconies, they can create this layered system for basic food production. And also, as we are in dense urban settlement and we have some green spaces like urban parks, we are saying that we can promote this cycle of production and consumption by putting some composting units in these parks, just so that people can actually create their own soil too. So this is the zone C, green urban settlement. This is still, it's a building complex, but they have larger scale green areas, which we created as community gardens. So our individual production amount can increase actually from 10% to 30% in general. And we can have fruit trees and also planters for community gardens and people to produce food. And in zone D, it's suburb areas with gardens. These are personal gardens, so people will able to create their own personal food production system in these places, and individual production amount can increase in these places too. And of course, it's really important to have the biodiversity in these issues. So we are adding trees and different producers. And of course, people need to be educated in this area. And this is when we use hub. And this is zone E, edge of the city. So the gardens are a little bit bigger, we have like opportunity as courtyard agriculture. So, and how was the system formed? So it is, as you can, if you can remember the site, there was already a storage area and food storage area. It was really big. So we didn't demolish it, but we redesigned it. And what we considered while we redesigning it is first the special distribution, then special organization, and final special adaptation. So we need some sale units. We needed some food production area, tree production area, and some areas to come and get it, like parking lots. So while we are placing these units, we actually take into consideration the sun orientation. So how the sun moves and how plants can get their sunlight. So we created a system where we can plant and place the plants according to the movement of sun. As you can see here in the north side, we have cell units. Then in the courtyard, we have fruit trees and plants with high light demand. It's here. And in the main garden, we have again fruit trees and also some recreational areas for visitors, as they need to be here and learn and buy their products and buy their plants and planters. So in special organization, from right to left, we firstly have the seeds, and then it started to turn into a plant, and finally the final product. So final product is close to the exit, and the inside of the area designed according to as their demand for space will be higher. In the special adaptation, as you can see here, this building was a pure rectangular building, and the adapted building was based on the sun direction, and we added some ceiling, or actually erased some ceiling according to this sun position. So how was the structure redesigned? So this was the final product. This is, as you can see here, in the middle ground, we have trees, and we have some education areas, community gardens, where people come and deal with production. But as this hub is actually a system which doesn't only depends on community, but also there are some people who are constantly, like always working here, who are responsible from the maintenance. So in the section we can see as this, we have bridge connection and fruit gardens in the middle, which are connecting these two buildings, actually 4 buildings. We have service area, track entry for transportation of plants and picked fruit to grocery stores. And as I told, it's also a community garden and recreational area for people. Therefore, we have some fruit gardens, sidewalks, and social terraces in the design. So we created different user profiles. Like inhabitants of the area are the main concern of the project. Individuals are involved in the project both actively and passively, as the main strategy was using gaming as a part of making people to create a bond with this place. This active involvement not only includes individuals on production, as we can see in their roof gardens or balconies, but also the active involvement in the production in the hubs. By becoming volunteers, individuals can help to sustain the meal mine and create food security for themselves and for the state. Also, as there are some education programs and festivals and events that takes place in hubs, we create a cycle of balance of production, consumption, and entertainment and social aspects. So yeah, one of our user profile was Anne-Marie, which she is a teacher, and she actually arranges school trips to this area and teach her students how to respect nature and how to produce their own food. And she's actually creating this possibility for them to learn. So we created a route here, as you can see, like this orange lines. So basically, actually, the school trips happens in the main courtyard, as it's had some not playgrounds but entertainment facilities and recreation areas. So the second user was, which we called Aunt Hatice, and she's just a neighbor from which she closed near to this area, and she is like 64 years old, and she had some kind of knowledge, but she comes here both to help and actually, as she is retired, maybe she can actually have a nice community interaction and social relations. And Pavel is a white collar worker, and he is kind of suffer from some depression, which is caused like not depression, but yeah, he needs some other things rather than just this on and on really dense working environment. So he uses this area as the relaxing area and connects with nature and other people to create a nice environment for himself. So this was the renders. This is the images for this food production facility. As you can see here, as London is not very sunny and usually takes out of rain, we created this glass building, which is more like a greenhouse maybe, but still, as you can see here, there is like this layered food production system, so they demand really high sunlight, and rain can be harvested from the rains of the area of London. And this is, as you can see, we have some biological, like man-made ponds for harvesting water, rainwater, and using it in the facility. And yeah, this was the last image, I guess. So this is the credits. I work with CAP's office, and we had 5 people design team, and yeah, thank you. Just share.
Sorry. So you finished?
Yeah.
I'm doing
Yes,
something. So anybody has comments, questions? Feel free. We have times.
Yeah, I would like Nergis to explain more about maybe a little more about design, so our students can have some image. I mean, do you have like a detailed design, or maybe zoom up to the plan and then?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can. Just let me share my screen again.
จบเร็วมากเลยให้เวลาถึงบ่ายสามนี่2:10จบแล้ว
So,
เอาพี่พูดอยู่
okay, so from this plan, we can talk a little bit more. First of all, this was not a scientific and applicable project. This was a conceptual design. So the details are not, we don't have much detail, but we created this working system for city. I can just mention that. So as you can see here, we has this, these are the, let me just annotate. Yeah, these are the ponds which we collect rainwater, as this is really rainy area. So we want this to sustain as much as it can by itself. So these are the fruit gardens in these areas. As like trees takes much more space, it was easier to locate them outside. And these are the more like educational and recreational areas, which we still have some kind of production system here, but these are mainly about teaching how this production system worked people, like the community, and just emphasize the importance of food production and self-sufficiency in this issue. So we had these buildings like them, and what we did was these were all concrete and some aluminum actually buildings, and they were used as storage units. But as we told, with this project we wanted to eliminate the transportation of food from rural area, instead of using these hubs as production zones for the main production zone. Of course, one zone, one hub cannot actually cannot be sufficient enough for whole city. So therefore, with every gap, like in the city should be analyzed and create some find some gaps where we can build these hubs for city. Let me just, okay. So yeah, this was the main system. Actually, we can, as you can see here, in the middle we have our hubs, which connects to the other houses of people. And in London, we found 5 types of architectural typologies. So one of them was dense urban area. The other one is more like a community area, suburbs, and etc. So in each part, we actually wanted to emphasize the importance of production and what they can do to do this production and be part of this production system. So this is more like a project about creating a system rather than just designing the hub. So as I told you, this was, for example, the first one, city center, and we all, probably you do and I am, living in city centers. Therefore, we don't have much connection with the green areas. It is not a sufficient system just to creating a roof garden, but still it creates the connection between the hub and the houses in the minds of people. So this was actually a part of education system and gamification of food production. So as you can see, we have balcony gardens, composting strategy, and community gardens, backyard agriculture, and courtyard agriculture. And this was like that. So in design, as I see, the most important part in London was the movement of the sun. So therefore we changed the building, like it was pure rectangular, and we created a gap between them to increase the open space and the sun, getting the sun in. And we created different roof system to maximize the space while doing this. And the design is in the right side, the layers, the stories are much more than the left side, as the left side here indicates the fully grown produces, while the beginning is more about the planting of them. So yeah, if you have any more question, I can.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. Thanks for your presentation. It's a very interesting idea. First question is, I didn't catch what the industrial buildings, what were the previous function of the industrial building?
It was a marketplace again. It was like this huge storages where the food comes from rural area, and they just fill this area with that, and people go and buy. The grocery stores can go and buy. It was a marketplace.
Ah, so it's like Borough Market in London. Borough Market.
Yeah, but this, I'm not sure. This doesn't, I think, doesn't sell food to directly.
Oh, maybe
to
the wholesaler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like the idea because it's like when we go to supermarket now that sometimes you get packs of herbs and they're already pre-picked, but then you get this other corner where you actually have a potted basil and a potted rosemary, a potted, in a way, your idea of this whole project is kind of like that instead of, a small scale like this, you made it so that it's become really big. It's kind of like you're combining grocery together with nursery.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is really interesting that you can go to a grocery store and you can pick your own tomatoes. You can, harvest your own corn, or, I think it's a interesting idea. Yeah.
Of course, it's clear that it cannot be applied to site right now because it needs really scientific way to
soil investigation.
Yes.
You need to make sure that the soil is nutritious enough to really grow all that stuff. Yeah, it's a big operation, but I think it's a interesting idea.
Thank you.
I have some questions about water.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about the water system? Because when you have a space and you have plants and plants need water, do you use just the tap water, or maybe
No,
you could
actually, this
explain a little bit about the water system using?
This, of course, this needs to be also investigated, but we created, as this is London and takes a lot of rain, we wanted to harvest the rain and create a little ponds, man-made ponds, to collect them and to use them for watering of the plants too. It was the main idea.
You can even harvest the roofs.
Yeah.
And then connect it to your ponds.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Are there any grey water recycling?
Here?
Yeah.
We did, this, like, we didn't actually created the system in Cityscape, but yeah, we actually wanted to have this, what's it called?
Because the climate in London, maybe you have also winter and maybe you don't have enough rain, but for the plant, you have to maybe in the nursery or something, you need some more water during the more winter or dry season.
Yeah, exactly. Probably this is not fully self-sufficient project, but we wanted to have this little biological, like, collection of rainwater and grey water. Maybe it can actually with this ponds, and we wanted to collect them, to take them in the hub and treat them and use them. But yeah, it's, of course, this ponds will by themselves probably won't be enough, but still it's a start.
Yeah, or you can have underground cistern. And you can even add a greenhouse so that some species could be protected or from a different with a different climate. So yeah, it's doable, but it will just cost a lot to do this.
That's for sure.
But it's okay.
And I also interested in the participation that you said some of the building on the rooftop, they have like an individual garden, terrace garden or from canopy garden, something like that. Balcony, sorry, balcony garden. So I am interested in how the individually maintain each unit of their garden. So the center provide something, or they have to be educated about how to plan and how to have their own urban agriculture, urban farming garden. Because now I'm also doing a farming, my individual farming for like for my salad, my kitchen. But we have some difficulty because even we are landscape architect, I don't know much about how the vegetable, my green oak salad going to survive. Now is maybe only half life of 45 to 50 days, but the plant have not gone very well. I mean, I have some difficulty.
Yeah, like it's impossible for urban people to know this, have this knowledge. So therefore, this hub actually mean by being a hub, it gives education to people. They can buy and get some seeds or little grown plants and continue to growing them in their balconies, gardens, roofs, whatever. So of course they need some kind of education, and this hub was designed to give that information to people, give this education to people, the community.
Yeah, I also have a little patch on my balcony too. I think it seems like the key thing is soil depth.
Yeah.
So just add more soil, and you need to feed the soil. So actually, every month or more, you need to add organic fertilizer. Then I think it should be okay. My problem is actually with pests. Pests. Yeah, because I don't want to spray pesticides. And because it's a balcony, so it's crowded. So the air circulation is not very good. So there are a lot of these practical issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually we have plenty of time, but as you may know that our students have to present the jury. So maybe they can have more time for their work. But actually I would like to have some questions from the students. Any?
Yeah, let's hear from students. Any comments, questions, concern, anything?
Especially Nergis is just graduate, and she practiced very well, and she worked in the award yeah. So she is she close to you. Maybe you would like to ask her about about how to design and how to win the competition, how to especially she's a storyteller and also visual. I think her graphic and her presentation show many things, especially the axonometric, the 3D, that also not only the diagram, but it shows the design and also the system. I think this is very good. So any of you have any questions? Please.
Someone wrote a question how long it took their team to make this plane from no idea to this paper. So this was, as I told, is a conceptual project. So usually it's tops 10 days from start to finish. And if we needed to submit more detailed projects, like 1 to 500 plans and detailed plans, it will take longer, but by being competition, usually having a compact working schedule is better than to just doing it for 2 months, because competitions are more like this interesting and very exciting situations. So in my terms, I would really like to start in like 15 days and work really hard in 15 days and finish it, rather than just doing it for 2 months. So yeah, for this project, it was around 10 days, and 7 of them is more like this hard work. Rather, 3 of them is just creating the idea.
So 8 days is okay. Like this project, the student doing a teamwork with 5 people or 6 people. So do you think 6 people within 8 days is okay?
Yeah.
To have the idea, of course.
You can, like, yeah, it's doable.
No, you want to go to work. Athena, Sonbe, you want to talk?
You turn on the microphone.
Anybody? Sonbe? Athena, Sonbe, you want to ask questions?
Asana? I don't think so.
No. Okay, I think they want to go to work properly. How long it took that? Oh, okay. This is...
Yeah, we talked already.
All right. So you can introduce to the each studio, and also other tutors, you can give your student information which room you want to meet and what time.
Okay, I think once again, thank you, Nergis, for the wonderful lecture about defining fresh. And we can see the nice graphic and the story, the detail. And so if no, no more questions, we're gonna end this session and move to the next activity. And yeah, like Nam said, maybe start with group one. Group one teacher or student, you want to arrange something here before we set up a time and then do the next activity. Group one, who's group one? Pavini? Pavini here? Or the students, professor, what time you want to meet? Or probably
อติการเมื่อกี้พลอยขึ้นมาว่าไง
อาจาร
คะ
ย์แล้วแต่เลยค่ะบ่าย 3ก็ได้ค่ะ 3 p.m. is good.
Okay, so group one said that they want to meet around 3 in the next 30 minutes, right? Next 30 minutes, group one will resume the meeting. And what about group two?
I don't know. You guys have meetings, right? Is that right? Nergis?
Me? I just need to leave around like 30 minutes earlier again.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you can
that's
start.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe, shall we say 15 minutes from now?
Yeah.
We go to our group that ma'am set up yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so group 2 in 15 minutes. Group 3, my group. My group, I think we meet in 30 minutes. 30 in 30 minutes. And group 4, what
Yeah,
time you?
now, Jay, now I think Wajin already left for her lecture at the university. But she will come back at 3 o'clock. I mean, Thailand time. So
In 30 minutes.
yeah, no, 30 minutes now from now.
All right.
Yeah, we can start at also 3 o'clock Thailand time, and then 4
5
o'clock
o'clock.
Hong Kong time, and 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
seems like many groups in 30 minutes, except group 2, right?
Yeah.
Group 2 in 15. Okay, so
Okay.
thank you everybody, and see you in the next activity in each group. Bye bye.
Yeah. Group three. Do you have your own Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I can manage only 3 rooms at a time. So if we turn on everything, one room have to be rejected.
No problem. We are good.
Okay. See you.
See you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.